Okay, let's tackle a big one today. Something that impacts every single hour you spend in the practice: stress. And maybe counterintuitively, how setting higher and clearer standards for yourself can actually reduce that stress significantly. Ask yourself honestly, do you feel like your day is a constant barrage of small, mentally taxing decisions, navigating those gray areas that seem to pop up constantly in dentistry? If so, you're not alone. But what if I told you there's a way to eliminate a huge chunk of that decision fatigue? Today we're diving into why having clearly defined, documented high standards for yourself and your practice doesn't add pressure, but creates clarity, boosting confidence, and ultimately making your professional life less stressful and way more rewarding. Getting this right is fundamental to becoming a better clinician, a better owner, and finding more enjoyment in what we do. So much of dentistry operates in shades of gray, doesn't it? Or when exactly do you recommend a crown versus a large filling? What precise criteria do you use? When is a contact tight enough after restoration? What specific steps constitute your ideal filling protocol? Every time you encounter one of these gray areas without a predefined standard, your brain has to engage in mental gymnastics. You have to weigh the options, consider the variables, maybe second guess yourself. Right there in the moment, often under time pressure. Think about the crown example. You see a crack on a marginal ridge. Okay, but the patient is 85 years old. Do you recommend the crown? Do you watch it? Do you even mention it? What factors exactly guide that decision? If you're figuring that out on the fly, patient after patient, that's mental energy expended. That's a decision point causing friction. Or you do a filling, you floss, and the contacts feel okay, but maybe not perfect. What's your standard? Do you automatically redo it if it doesn't meet a specific tightness? Or do you spend mental energy debating on it each time? Another decision point. Now, your assistant misses an item on their closing checklist. Do you address it immediately? Do you wait? What's the protocol? More mental load. If you see an iffy spot on an x-ray, maybe just touching the DEJ, maybe just into it. Do you watch it? Do you restore it? What are your written down criteria? If you don't have them, you're deciding from scratch again. A limited exam or an emergency call wants to come in and be seen today. What's your policy? Who qualifies? Who doesn't? How is that communicated? If it's decided case by case based on how busy you are or how insistent the patient is, that's more stress. Individually, each of these might seem small, a minor mental hurdle, but multiplying that by 10, 20, 40 times throughout a single day, now add the pressure of running on time, managing staff, dealing with patient anxieties. It's exhausting. The constant low-grade decision fatigue is a massive contributor to burnout in our profession. It chips away at your mental energy, leaving you drained and less effective by the end of the day. Here is a critical side effect. It erodes your confidence. How can you sound truly confident diagnosing or recommending treatment when internally you're still actively wrestling with the decision yourself in that very moment? Patients pick up on that hesitation, consciously or subconsciously. Think about it. If you're unsure, if you're still mentally debating the pros and cons while you're talking to the patient, of course it's hard to project certainty. But what if there was another way? What if for the vast majority of these recurring clinical and operational situations, the decision was already made? Imagine you proactively took these common gray areas, these points of friction, and you mapped them out. You sat down, maybe during admin time, maybe with your team, and you researched the best practices, considered your own clinical philosophy, and defined a clear, high standard. You wrote it down. You committed to it. Let's revisit that crown example with the cracked marginal ridge. What if you had already researched the literature, looked at your outcomes, and established a clear standard? If a crack is visible crossing a marginal ridge on a posterior tooth, regardless of patient age, a full coverage restoration is indicated due to the high risk of fracture or future complications. You've already thought about the why. You've maybe even outlined how you explain it to patients and address common objections. Now, when that clinical situation arises chairside, there's no debate. There's no stressful mental calculation. You see the condition, it meets your predefined standard, therefore you confidently recommend the crown. The thinking, the hard mental work was already done offline. Now you're just executing the protocol. If the patient objects, you already have your well-reasoned explanation ready. There's no wavering, just clear communication based on a standard you believe in. Do you see the shift? The stress of making the decision disappears. It's replaced by the simple act of following your established standard. Not only will you be amazed at how much less mental fatigue you experience throughout the day by eliminating these constant micro decisions, but your confidence will skyrocket. You'll sound more confident because you are more confident. You're not making it up as you go. You're operating from a place of conviction based on work you've already done. And guess what? That confidence is contagious. Patients are far more likely to trust your judgment and accept necessary treatment when it's presented with clarity and conviction. It's a win for your stress levels, a win for your confidence, and a win for patient care and case acceptance. It still amazes me how often we as dentists find ourselves diagnosing and recommending things that, if we're truly honest, we haven't researched deeply enough to fully convince ourselves. Take sealants on adults, for example. How many of you routinely recommend them? My guess is not many. Why? Often it's because you don't fully believe they're effective in adults. Perhaps because you haven't taken the time to really investigate which material and which specific protocol are proven to work in that population, and which specific patient risk factors make them highly indicated. But what if you did do that research? What if you identified a material and a meticulous technique with solid evidence behind it for adult sealant placement? And what if you clearly define the criteria for which adult patients would most benefit? Suddenly, recommending sealants wouldn't feel like pushing something questionable. It would feel like offering a valuable, evidence-based preventative service according to your established standard. I bet you'd start recommending far more often and with lots of confidence. There is something incredibly mentally freeing about taking the time to understand an issue, research the best approach, create a system or standard around it, and then simply commit to following that system. Imagine how much simpler and less stressful your clinical day could be if most recurring situations were handled by well thought out systems and standards that you just simply execute. If you are serious about having a more successful and less stressful and ultimately happier career in dentistry, I strongly urge you to adopt this mindset. Start paying attention throughout your day. When do you feel that twinge of uncertainty? When do you hesitate? When does a decision feel more mentally taxing than it should? Those moments are signals. They are highlighting areas where you lack a clear, predefined script or standard. Here's the actionable process. 1. Identify the friction. Keep a running list, maybe call it your issues list. Every time you encounter a situation that causes stress, confusion, hesitation, or decision fatigue, jot it down. Don't try to solve it, just capture it. Number 2, dedicate time to solve. Schedule time later, maybe weekly admin time to tackle some items on your list. Then 3, research and define. Pick an issue, dive deep, read the literature, consult with trusted colleagues, consider your practice philosophy. Define your clear standard or protocol for handling the situation. What are the exact criteria? What are the steps? And then 4th, document it. Write it down clearly. Make it part of your practice manual or your protocols. Ensure your team understands all of the relevant standards. And then 5, commit and follow. This is key. Once the standard is set, follow it consistently. Resist the urge to deviate based on mood or time pressure. Trust the work that you did in defining the standard. Every time you take a stress point, wrestle it to the ground through research and definition and document a clear standard. You solve that problem permanently. It's no longer a source of daily friction. Day after day, week after week, as you systematically address these points, you'll find fewer and fewer situations causing you undue stress and confusion. Before long, you'll be moving through your day with more confidence and ease, executing well-defined protocols instead of constantly reinventing the wheel under pressure. This is how you build true clinical and operational confidence. This is how you become a less stressed, more effective, and happier dentist. And there's one more huge benefit: patient management. How often do patients try talking us into doing something that we know isn't ideal or even clinically sound? If you haven't clearly defined your own standards, it's easy to get pushed into compromising situations that often end poorly. But if you've done the work, if you know your standard is based on sound principles, you can confidently explain why you can or cannot do what the patient is asking. You can firmly but professionally hold your ground. Most patients will respect that confident clarity, and if they don't, well, that's okay too. You've avoided a situation where you were set up to fail or deliver substandard care, protecting both the patient and yourself. So here's the takeaway. Start listening for those moments of doubt, confusion, or stress in your decision-making throughout the day. Write them down, then systematically tackle them. Research, define your high standard, document it, and follow it. Your future self, the one who is less stressed, more confident, and enjoying dentistry more, will thank you. What's one area in your practice right now where you feel that decision fatigue the most? Is it diagnosis, treatment planning, team management, scheduling? Share it in the comments below. Let's acknowledge these common challenges. And if you're committed to building a practice that runs more smoothly and causes less stress, make sure you subscribe. We're all about strategies that make our profession better. Take what you learned today and about setting high standards to reduce stress and put it into action. Start that issues list today. Let's keep working together to make dentistry more fun, rewarding, and fulfilling. Subscribe so you don't miss the next strategy, and I'll see you soon.